So, let's jump right into it. Imagine this. Instead of the 14 Pauline letters we're familiar with, what if the earliest collection was actually a leaner, 10-letter corpus that later editors expanded?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And this idea, particularly linked to Marcion's mid-second century collection, really flips our perspective, doesn't it?
It does. It's quite fascinating. The proposal suggests that this original 10-letter set wasn't just a smaller version, but actually laid the groundwork. Later redaction, in, say, two distinct waves, reordered and padded these letters, blending them with Acts to, construct the familiar Paul profile we
Exactly.
see today. And it's like the redactors were carefully crafting a narrative that fit their evolving theological goals. It's like they took a raw draft and, gave it a dramatic makeover.
I love that analogy. It's like editing a movie where the rough cut gets refined to deliver a polished, coherent story. But this makes me wonder, don't you think it's a bit, presumptive to say the changes were all intentional, rather than just, natural transmission errors?
That's a great point, really. I mean, while natural transmission mutations are always a factor in ancient texts, the systematic nature of these changes, the consistent expansion and reordering, suggests a deliberate reworking.
Yep, that makes sense.
So, if we dig a little deeper, the argument goes that the raw, pre-canonical 10-letter approach had a leaner Pauline voice. Then, to align with the narrative frameworks of Acts, later editors not only added more letters, but shifted the tone to create a more theologically charged Saul-Paul image.
Kind of like a remix, right? Where the underlying beat stays similar, but the added layers and effects completely change the vibe.
Exactly, it's like a remix of a classic song. The structure remains, but the overlaid harmonies and beats, that is, the redaction, give it a new, enriched meaning. And this melding with Acts plays a crucial role because Acts provides a sort of narrative frame that, as scholars argue, even eclipses the earlier raw letters.
Yeah, for sure. So, Acts doesn't just sit in the background. It's actively shaping this larger Paul identity, isn't it?
Right, it's like Acts is the glue that binds the letters into a cohesive story. By, harmonizing the content, the editors aimed to produce a consistent doctrinal message, crafting a version of Paul that was more than just a messenger. It was a theological icon.
I see. And, isn't that where a lot of the textual criticism comes in? I mean, Dr. Marcus Vincent's work, which delves into these two collections, really pushes us to reconsider how we define authorship and authenticity in early Christian writings.
Absolutely. The idea isn't simply about what we have on the page. It's about how those texts got there. The new Greek rebuild of that 10-letter corpus, essentially an effort to reconstruct the original, is pivotal to understanding that transformation.
Right.
It's like peeling an onion. Each layer tells you a different story. The earliest layer might have burst with a raw, unfiltered message, and then later layers add complexity and theological nuance, forming what we now recognize as Paul's narrative in the New Testament.
That's a compelling image. But I have to ask, doesn't this approach risk oversimplifying the motives behind redaction? I mean, while it explains the changes in the letters, perhaps some changes were simply, natural responses to evolving language and tradition.
Yeah, that's a fair challenge. There's always this tension between intentional editorial reworking and the organic evolution of texts. However, when you see, the careful ordering and the strategic expansion, it points toward a deliberate effort to harmonize the documents with other texts, especially Acts.
I get you.
And it further forces us to ask, what does authenticity mean in this context? Should we value the earlier 10-letter version as the real Paul? Or do we see value in the evolved, redacted version that, speaks to a broader community's needs?
That's a tough nut indeed. On one hand, you've got the unvarnished, direct voice of early Christianity. On the other, a more polished, unified message that evidently catered to later theological debates.
Exactly. It's a double-edged sword. The edited 14-letter corpus aligns perfectly with later doctrinal formulations, yet in the process, it might obscure some original nuances that could have given us, a truer picture of early Paul's thinking.
Yeah.
And then, there's the issue of how Acts is used. Acts isn't merely an add-on. It's an integral component that reinforces the sculpted image of Paul. I mean, can you imagine how different the perception of Paul might be if Acts hadn't been used to frame and, blend with the letters?
It's almost as if Acts becomes a narrative architect, defining the boundaries of who Paul is supposed to be. But doesn't that raise concerns about the historical versus the theological Paul?
Oh, absolutely. This whole discussion, challenges the boundary between the historical man and the mythologized figure. It's a debate that has important ramifications for reconstructing early Christianity
Definitely.
accurately. So what we're essentially looking at is a reinterpretation of textual history. Two overlapping but distinct collections that reflect different moments and priorities in early Christian communities.
Right, it's like having two versions of a classic story. I also wonder if this redaction was purely a case of, theological reshaping, or whether it also had a political dimension, like aligning Paul more closely with emerging church structures. What do you think?
That's a great observation. There's definitely an argument that the editorial changes were also about consolidating authority. By creating a more coherent Pauline message that fits seamlessly with Acts, the early church could bolster its doctrinal legitimacy.
That sounds plausible.
Exactly. It wasn't just about recitation. It was about, constructing an ideal figure to serve as a beacon for the community, one that embodied the values the church wanted to promote.
And that, in turn, profoundly influences how we understand the development of early Christian thought and identity, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's like a chain reaction. The way these texts were redacted informs not only the textual tradition but the intellectual and spiritual trajectory of early Christianity as a whole.
Right, absolutely.
Now, one of the more complex issues is how we balance the scholarly evidence with the traditional views. The new Greek rebuild presents strong, data-driven insights, yet some might say that such methodologies risk sidelining tradition.
I hear you, but I have to respectfully challenge that. Don't you think being critical of tradition can sometimes, lead us away from a holistic understanding?
That's a fair critique. I mean, while methodological rigor is essential, it's also important to respect the historical context and tradition. But when you peel back the layers, as we discussed, the evidence supports the idea of intentional redaction, not just random
that balance
evolution.
is key.
And so, by exploring these two collections, the raw 10 and the redacted 14, we gain a richer understanding of how early texts were not static but, dynamic documents constantly being reshaped to meet the needs of their times.
Right. It's like watching history in motion. Every editorial choice, every reordering, tells us something about the early church's priorities and challenges.
Exactly. And this not only deepens our appreciation for textual criticism, but also opens up, exciting routes for reinterpreting early Christian thought, reminding us that what we now consider canonical is really the end result of countless, deliberate choices.
Yeah, totally.
So, to wrap it up, the conversation around these two collections challenges us to rethink authorship, authenticity, and even the interplay between literature and historical context. It's like uncovering hidden layers in a well-read book that suddenly reveal new insights about its creation.
Absolutely. And it's a reminder that ancient texts, much like a piece of art, can be interpreted in so many ways depending on how you look at them. That constant interplay of redaction, tradition, and innovation is what keeps the field so vibrant.
Exactly. And this whole discussion is not only a testament to the fluid nature of our historical sources, but also a reminder for us to keep questioning and exploring. Every new finding, every rebuilt text adds another dimension to our understanding of early Christianity.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
It's a fascinating journey, from a potential 10-letter origin to a fully framed narrative in Acts, and it invites us to see history as a living, evolving conversation.
So true.
And while debates continue, this interplay between textual reconstruction and redaction truly enriches our insight into the transformative process of faith and tradition.
Absolutely, it's been an enlightening dive.
All right, that's our deep dive for today. Uncovering these layers of early Pauline texts really shows how history is never set in stone, but an ever-evolving narrative shaped by human hands and hearts.
Yep, thanks for this stimulating chat.